teach. Yeah. I have it all.
Do-do-do.
Let's make sure the sound's working first. Everybody else decided they didn't love me, which is fair. Can't really argue with the facts. Is that good? I like how I have to.
When is good? I have missionary reports to read.
Okay, I just testing the sound, making sure it works. If you want to do that now, that way I can just work with the sound. How'd that pick him up? That's impressive. 15-second delay.
Hi, Blake.
All right, so let's see what else we need to maybe turn on while we're waiting. I don't know Spanish. All right, you good?
Please? Yeah.
You got the stuff you need for the missionary report?
I'll just stand right here.
We're gonna be right there though.
Yeah, I'll just stand right here. Is that okay if I just stand here?
Oh, the video's up there, so at least take the mic back with you.
All right.
You can go wherever you want. I just need to adjust this.
You mind if I just sit there then?
Yeah, go for it. I'm not gonna sit there right there.
Well, good evening. I have missionary reports. Gary usually reads these, but he had surgery yesterday, had a total knee. He's at home now, doing well. So if we keep him in our prayers for a quick recovery. The first one is from Peter and Zorka Abram in Slovakia. And here's what they've saying, dear praying and supporting friends, all the coronavirus pandemic has eased up. The new pandemic exploded, and they're talking about the war. They've converted a lot of their church space into a refugee camp. And they're providing food and lodging for about 21 people. And 4 of them are residing in a church home. Let's see what else. They are, a lot of the people are non-Christians, but they are receptive to the word. And they appreciate what's being done for them. So if you can keep them in your prayers and pray for guidance and support for them. And now the next one is from Jerry and Sherry Daniels. They're missionaries in Kenya. And it says, dear Pastor Neil and members of Ashland Avenue Baptist Church, it was a blessing to see our son, Russ Daniels, receive his master's degree at Baptist Bible College last week. Also, he and his wife Sylvia received recognitions of 30 years faithful service as missionaries in Uganda. The award was given on the same stage where Sherry and I were approved as missionaries to Kenya exactly 50 years ago. God has graciously blessed the ministry in Kenya over the years with many churches planned, Bible colleges and Christian schools, and other ministries established. However, all over the years, we have been greatly burdened with the vast, unreached northern regions of Kenya, 90,000 square miles of hostile climate. So, weak law enforcement and a lot of resistance. I guess a lot of Muslim and other, even witchcraft and things like that. In recent years, our Kenya leaders have caught the burden for a huge unreached area and have made significant progress evangelizing and planting churches in these difficult areas. Most of the 17 new churches which were planted in 2021 are in these remote northern regions. Now there is a critical need. The seasonal rains have failed for the past 2 years in northern Kenya. Animals are dying and food is very scarce. I would like to send some funds to help with the famine relief, and such assistance would help our young churches in those suffering regions win favor with their communities. Any help for this need would go a long way in establishing and strengthening more churches in this needy areas. And he's very grateful for the prayers and the financial support, and he signs it Jerry and Sherry Daniels. The next one is from Wilhelm and Sandra Falk in Germany. And they start out, "Dear prayer warriors, well, exciting things are happening. The coronavirus, or whatever it is, has put a damper on the attendance of our services. 2 of our men got the virus. They had to stay home for a few weeks. Praise the Lord that they are well again and are in the services. Sandy and I, praise the Lord, the 2 of us have not gotten the virus or whatever it is, and we have got our 3 hosts." I don't know what that word is. "Thank you for your prayers. They do work, and our great physician is also very gracious. As you know, perhaps know, our sending pastor, Brother Mike Poole, had a stroke a few months back. Then his wife, he called her his helpmate, fell and broke her hip. She was operated on and now has a titanium plate in her hip. Both are, as far as I know, doing well now after therapy. Do pray for them. They are both in Highland, Indiana. We're holding our regular church services every Sunday at 10 a.m. for the Germans and at 11:15 for the English-speaking folks. Every Thursday at 19:30 for the German folks, we have 2 young ladies, Hannah and her sister, who have passed out thousands of literature, and we get responses from their work. We also have a 91-year-old man, Adolf W., and his wife, Elena. They both need to be saved. Pray for them both. Thank you for your faithful support with prayers and love gifts. Continue to pray for salvation for Margaret D., Thomas D., the Sitz family, Johanne K., and all visitors to be saved." Okay? And that's the end of the 3 missionary reports. So, okay, Jason.
I had to turn down my sound a little bit. So I'm just going to be having a 15-second delay in my ear. We're going to play a game of how bad can I confuse myself. And it's already started. So let me get this up and going for a second. Hopefully that's good. I will be watching the stream, so let me know if it's going wonky so that I can change it and don't have to actually put a weird delay in my ear. So, as you know, I don't print things off because I don't have access to the printer right now. And I'm really hoping this doesn't just start falling on me. Today, I thought, and every time I go to this, I try to think, what is going to be something I want to talk about? And it always goes back to, what do I need to change? Which is always a good topic, because that means everything I talk about, I have to do myself. That puts a little bit of a hamper on things. It's like, oh, I don't get to talk to people, I get to talk to myself and see where that leads. So what I want to talk about is something I have a common occurrence with. It is something that involves in every part of my life, and I think Pastor James is going to take the next step of this at some point, but the idea of frustration. So frustration is always been in my life. You know, you always get that. Some people say, hey, I don't ever get angry, but they get upset, they get miffed, they get this, that, or the other. But I think legitimately frustration is that step right before anger. And in fact, I have a bunch of comparisons here, and I want to involve everybody here in these points because I have quite a few pages to go through of what is frustration, how does it differ for the first part, and then what does God say about it? Because ultimately, I don't care what I think. I care about what God thinks because that's the part that will lead me right. I get it wrong, God gets it right, and I want to stay on that line. So let's talk about the idea of frustration. For me, before I ever get into a definition, frustration's always been that part of, hey, I'm not angry at anything in particular, I'm just kind of annoyed. I think that's a good word. You're annoyed at something. You're bothered by something. Hey, my brother humming a tune that annoys me doesn't really get me angry. I mean, if it's badly hummed, maybe it'll get up to that point, but it's more like that frustration of stop. My goodness. The first time you ever have a sibling or a child that starts poking each other in the car saying, hey, and they're just poking each other and you have to look back or just to tell them to stop. Yeah, that first part probably isn't anger. Then he does it again. Still not anger. Then he does it again. Then you try to push him out the side of the door, but personal experiences aside, it might get up to anger. So you could see, I have a definition, I have a line that, hey, that's not anger. I'm not angry at something to the point of explosion. I'm kind of just annoyed that this is happening. So here's the definition that I found online, and all of this is stuff I stole from other people. Not a unique thought in this. Let's not even pretend that there's a unique thought. This is all stolen. The defined frustration is the feeling of being upset or annoyed, especially because of the inability to change or achieve something. That's fun. So when I'm in traffic, that's a good one. There's a big step before road rage. There's a big step before I'm super angry at somebody, and it's usually that traffic where everybody's going slow. Not that one person, but just touch and go, and here's me going slow. Hey, I have an hour drive. Stop making it an hour and 30 minutes because it's raining slightly. This kind of annoys me. That would be frustration. But then again, I wanted to set boundaries. So what is frustration compared to anger? Well, a definition would be, so here's what I found and here's what somebody said. I thought it was pretty good. Anger is the natural response to a situation where we feel offended or wronged doing and is usually triggered by external factors. For example, injustice, which is, I think, the biggest one. You feel angry because somebody stepped on your sense of justice. Somebody stepped on that idea that you have. Injustice, humiliation, or illnesses. Now, frustration, on the other hand, is dissatisfaction with specific situations. So like I said, it's that kind of like the overall feeling of being annoyed. And that could definitely be hidden. And like I said, why am I talking about myself? Because that's usually hidden in a way of I'm annoyed at something that's happening. I work with kids and teachers, mostly with teachers, sometimes with kids when they do something dumb. And the human condition can sometimes be annoying. I can sometimes be annoying. I get it. I'm frustrating. I get that other people are frustrated. When two people collide, a teacher has come to me and said, hey, I want this done. And I look at it, and I look at them, and I say, no, you will not have that done. Because I work in IT, and they think it can just magically happen. And sure, it could happen if we were a team of 20 people that were highly skilled in one specific area. But we are not. It's like, you gotta set your expectations right. And I'm sure I am frustrating to that person. I am sure. I don't think they're angry. And thankfully, I don't think they're angry. But that's gotta be frustrating. Or how about the opposite? When they do something, that frustrates me. We give them computers to use. Sometimes those computers come back in a less than satisfactory condition. And that's frustrating. It's like, just take care of it a little bit. But then I have to realize, hey, things happen. They've had it for 2 years. It's just part of life. So that's kind of the idea of frustration, and that's the starting point I want to get to. So let's look at a few other comparisons. Anger versus frustration. Well, anger, I've heard, is the result of the slow and steady frustration. Please don't turn off. I need you. Anger is that result, is what I've heard. And I think that's a good conclusion. I think you can also snap to anger, but I think, and this is my definition, this is what I'm aiming at, is that anger is the next step. Frustration and anger are both human emotions to a certain situation, which can be hurtful and anxious. That's how they're similar. But let's see kind of some physical examples. Well, anger causes insomnia, headaches, heavy heart rate, high blood pressure, and heavy breathing, kind of like the physical, you're out of whack sort. I've been there. I have gotten to that point of just pure anger, and that is much more physical. Now, comparatively, I think frustration, there comes a feeling of hopelessness, discouragement, low self-esteem, loneliness, and silence. You see, when you have anger, it's usually at something. And frustration, I have seen, is at situations you cannot control, and it's at yourself for not being able to do something. Why am I talking about this? Well, frustration happens to everybody a lot more than anger. And it's kind of like what I tell teachers, hey, this is a problem, and I know you're okay with dealing with it, but let's see if we can do something about it. Because you deal with this a lot more than you deal with the big problems. I have to talk in these terms of like what I know. If you try to print something out and it's annoying, yeah, that's annoying, yeah. You can deal with it, but you have to print it out every day. Yeah, you have to do this every single day. And then the printer breaks. That would be the anger part versus the frustration, when the printer actually breaks. And by golly, they break a lot, but it is not nowhere near how many times you have to use it and how annoying it is for that one thing to go wrong. Frustration just happens a ton more, and I think it impacts us just as much as anger. And, you know, it's another part of that controlling yourself. So this is what I wanted to learn how to do for myself. How do I control? How do I go with frustration? Well, let's look at a few more things that I wanted to get through about anger versus frustration. Anger's fast, frustration's slow. Anger's external, frustration's a lot of internal thought. It's built up versus the response to disappointment. It's easily detected. I can always know when I'm angry, but when I'm frustrated, it might just come off as me being moody and, like I said, just generally upset about something. What am I frustrated with? And that could just be a feeling. Have you ever been in a state where you're not quite sure, hey, what's wrong here? You know something's wrong, but you're not quite sure what it is. Yeah, that might just be the frustration kicking in for a bunch of things happening at once. I woke up today and my car battery wasn't working. I had to call somebody, and they helped me out and immediately hit and dented my rim of the wheel. That makes two because I found out last week my other wheel was dented by an unknown cause. I'm sure I did it. I had to drive an hour later because it was later, it was in traffic. I was not particularly annoyed or particularly angry at anything, but I can tell you I was frustrated. Hey, this could have been an easy fix because yesterday I bought a new battery that should have solved the situation. But then the terminal broke. But then somebody said, hey, that's okay. It'll still work. And then it didn't. Frustration built up. I can tell you that. And thank goodness I had something to focus on. Because I've been thinking, hey, what can I do? What can I say? And I know that's kind of disjointed. I know some people are frustrated with me and how I'm talking right now. It is unfortunately how it works, and I'm trying to fix it. Frustration, though, happens a lot. So that is the whole intro. That is what I'm trying to get through. And I'm going to go through right now, just so everybody gets up to me, I'm going to go through the world's advice on how to deal with frustration. And I say world's advice, it's not bad advice. It's just not. I agree with pretty much all of it. I'm going to go through the stories, and then I want to see what the Bible says exactly about it. So let's talk about the world's advice. It says do things like activity, do physical activity. It gets your mind off of it. Write down how you feel. Have you ever done that? I definitely have, and I will not review that journal. Talk it out with a friend. Fantastic idea. Sometimes I have to call up somebody and say, hey, this went wrong. Why? And just talk about it. Meditate on it. Force yourself to take deep breaths. These are all what just a general Google search says to do. I took a few of them together. Do something that brings you joy. Pet an animal. I have 2 cats, and I guarantee you they bring me more frustration by how much scars I have on my hand. Look for solutions. When I'm frustrated, what can I do? Check your expectations. I think that's a good one. I expect so much more from a 14-year-old car than I should. Talk to a therapist. What about listen to music? Music impacts the soul. Those are just things that the world says that you can do. And like I said, good advice. I think it's solid advice. But let's look at some of the stories, some of what happened in the Bible where people who were dealing with frustration. What about Jonah? He's the first guy I think of. He had to deal with a lot. He's like, I didn't want to do this. He literally tried to run away. I don't think he was angry. Wasn't angry at God. He just tried to run away because he didn't want to deal with it. He had the stubbornness. I think that's part of frustration, is you're stubborn about something. Hey, I know it's not too common, but I can choose to be stubborn. My mom will always tell me I'm stubborn because when I choose to do something, I hit my head against the wall until it's done, even though there's an easier way. Today I found a printer that somebody was trying to get rid of. Nice printer. Figured out how to fix it. Was any of that worth it? No, they would have bought me a new printer if I asked. But I just got stubborn about it. It took me 2 hours, and it probably wasn't entirely worth it, but I was proud. But I need to learn to accept God's plan sometimes. That car breaking down was somehow part of God's plans because I definitely learned more from it. I have a tale to tell, and I am more focused on saving up money to buy a new car next year. There was lessons to be learned in frustration. It wasn't flat out anger of why, but it was gotta focus on the situation now. I don't want to deal with it, but you have to. What about Abraham and Sarah? They had to wait. Oh, you ever had to wait for something? I have a package coming from China. Yeah, it says 20 days it'll arrive, and it's like 2 months. It says one time, and it says it's not going to be right. Have you ever had to wait on something? How about food? I have a microwave, and I use it a lot. But if I have to ever actually cook food, that involves me eating a lot of other food while I'm cooking my actual food. Waiting is hard. Abraham and Sarah had to wait, and they didn't know when that waiting would be over. It's hard, but they had to have patience. Well, these are things you can learn. What about David? He had so many opportunities. When I first think of David, he wasn't, I don't think he said David was angry at Saul, but I remember the cave incident where Saul went to the cave to relieve himself, and David cut off a little tiny piece of Saul's clothing. And he held it up and showed Saul later and said, I could have taken your life. What did he learn? He had opportunities to do what he wanted to do and had to learn to trust God. You look at the Psalms that David wrote, and they say, like, where are you, God? And he had to wrestle over situations and had to come to terms with what God wanted him to do. So God's plan. Oh, I saw this brought up a few times in my searches. What about Jesus? Was he frustrated with people? Pharisees coming? And what about his own disciples? Ye of little faith? I'm not angry, but maybe frustrated. Hey, why can't you pick up what I'm putting down? I think of specifically, this is talking about the bread. They had just seen the feeding of the 5,000, and Jesus was saying, hey, don't... Now, I should have read it. I should have written it down. But it was talking about the Pharisees and how they were the bad bread. And the disciples were not thinking spiritually and thinking, hey, that's actual bread. And thinking physical, actual bread. And Jesus was like, no, I'm talking spiritually. And maybe that seems to be frustrating, not to the point of anger at all, but kind of like, get your head back into the game. We just saw a miracle. Think spiritually. What about Jacob? Going back to the Old Testament, literally wrestled with God? That's crazy. Not angry, frustrating. It's like, what do I do? What do I say? My brother's going to try to kill me. That's a real life talk. Well, give yourself over to God. What about Moses? Pharaoh not letting his people go. I will always think of the Disney movie because I love that, but always having to go back, let my people go. Well, if you don't, this will happen. And then it happened, and over again. And Pharaoh's heart hardened and hardened. That's got to be frustrating. But maybe he learned letting God do his work. In all these Bible verses, in all these stories, you always think of the highlights. Hey, this person got angry. Jesus got angry in the temple because of how they were defiling the temple of God. Legitimate anger. Or you think earlier how David did all these mighty things, or the wrong thing. And you think of maybe Jonah's, the absolute rebelliousness he had. But I think in all these stories, what happened more often than not is frustration. You had this frustrating part of, I'm not angry, but what is happening? Jesus being the exclusion here, but I still think he went and felt frustration. So what does the Bible say? Well, I have a bunch of these written down with a bunch of Bible verses, and I just want to go through them, and then I want to ask if anybody here has anything to add. What does the Bible have to say? Well, let's start off with some more general ideas instead of what we can do or putting the work to the thought. Well, general ideas. What about God is overcome already? And when you're frustrated, knowing that God is overcome is a good thought. John 16:33 says, "These things have I spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." My car don't matter. God is overcome. I like using that verse when a lot of bad things happen, but sometimes I think back to that. It's like, well, God's overcome, and just know that even though I'm annoyed, even though that this bad thing is going to build up, I can relieve myself before it gets to that anger. God has overcome. What about there's a reward? Galatians 6:9 says, "And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not." Hey, I got to a job I actually like. I have to drive an hour there, drive an hour back, but that's kind of like the frustration. Like I said, if I leave later than what I have to leave at, I hit all of the traffic. And if there is any sort of weather, if it's sprinkling, people are pulling over, going 20 under the speed limit, and why are they doing that? Stop. It is perfectly drivable. But there's a reward to that. And humanly speaking, my reward is I get paid. I get to do a job I actually like. I have to put up for it now, but I'll be moving out there a little bit closer, hopefully, so I don't have to deal with that as much. But there's a reward. What about the things that God has for us? About praying for somebody. Oh, why don't you get it through your head? You need to do this. You need to change this. Stop that. Sometimes, trying to help somebody is really frustrating. You love them. You want them to see God. You want them to see good. And you want to do good with them, but it can get frustrating. I remember back in college, I was trying to be a youth pastor back then. Turns out I'm really antisocial, so yeah, I don't know where that went. But that's one of the things they said. You're going to get really frustrated with a lot of people, and you're going to love them for it, and you're going to just be annoyed sometimes. And I just remember that being actual advice. And yeah, I can definitely see it. You're going to love your family, you're going to love your kids, and you're going to be annoyed at them. I can see how my mom can get frustrated with me even now. She's like, we have different opinions, we have different thoughts and motives, but frustration does not mean that there's no reward. I do think there's a reward in what we can learn. And that's a lot of, in those stories, those are frustrations, those are the stretching points. And as a side note, I didn't write this down, but I think of frustration. I think of these times of annoyance. I think of these times as things we can learn as times like the 5th grade math class. By golly, in 5th grade, that math class was hard. But if you didn't take it, 6th grade math class would be even worse. You get stretched, those little stretches. You're not those big ones, but those little ones. And you get stretched and stretched and stretched. Hey, now you're at multiplication. Now you're at exponents. You know, I can kind of get it. You're leading one step to the other. And instead of jumping the giant hurdle where you're afraid because there's a divot in the middle that could hurt you, this is like walking that extra step. Yeah, your legs are tired, but we got to power through it. And once again, I know I said this 20 times already, but I do want to reiterate it. It's not, frustration isn't that hard point in your life, but it's that point where you have to stretch yourself, and I want to take it out. I want to end it in my own life and at least cut it off before it gets anything further. And dealing with a car today, it really has shown that has helped. That mindset of that has helped. What about there's a God who cares, though? 1 Peter 5:7, casting all your cares upon him, for he careth for you. Hey, God cares for me. When you know what that means, it means I can go to God. I'm not going to lose my job because my car stopped. They're very forgiving with me about that. And I can go to God and say, hey, what do I need to do? I can just go to him. I find that super comforting that I can just talk with God. And I do that. I think to myself, and that's things I need to change too, is I talk with God about it. I don't go, hey, can you help me with this all the time? I sometimes just talk my thoughts and let it sit and dwell. And I imagine it's like underneath the wings of Christ. That is my image in my head of being a little chick underneath the mama hen, and it's just protected. Going to a God who cares. What about there is peace? So Philippians 4:7 says, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. There is peace in God. And you can go to him for that peace. And in those times of your brother poking you in the side, of trying to say, or he's looking at you too much, or your kids are fighting, there can be peace in God. And that's something I need to learn. And that's something I would rather learn in the small times than in the big times. They always say you build your house before the storm. Build a castle before the storm. You train before the war. I think this is part of it. This is the training. What about this is working for good? So we're about to step into what's actually we need to do. But this is working for good. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. A good example of this is I don't know jack about cars. It's a terminal that needs to be replaced, 2 bolts apparently. I get scared when I have to touch a battery that could kill me if I touch it wrong. But I had a guy come out here. We made contact initially. I think I left a good impression. He left a good impression. But that's a person I wouldn't have had contact with, unless this had happened. And I'm happy about that. Maybe we'll catch up again sometime. But it's working to good in ways we don't know. Now, here's some things that we could actually and physically do. What about acknowledge him and his wisdom? Proverbs 3:6, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. I had to memorize that as a kid. I had to memorize that in college a couple of times. But it's just a good thought. Acknowledge him. Acknowledge that he has wisdom and follow after it. Let him be your guide. Be slow to speak and quick to hear and slow to anger. James 1:19 says, wherefore, my beloved, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. I said it out of order. My bad. But it has that good idea of, and I think they say that no matter where you're at, be swift to hear, slow to speak. I'm tired of saying something and just being bad for it. I'm tired of saying something with my foot in my mouth. I need to be swift to hear, slow to speak. And that little amount of delay will save me, I know at least, a lot of trouble. Go to God. Jeremiah 29:11 says, for I know the thoughts that I think towards you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, and to give an expected end. Go to God. Go to God because he cares, like we said. He conquered everything. He'll give you wisdom. I should have put that one here too. But going to God helps so much. And, you're in the middle of something and saying, hey, God, help me out here. Keep me focused. And just talking to him helps so much. I got frustrated with something the other day, and I just lied on my back to talk to God. Thankfully, it was on a carpet because my back don't work well anymore. But just going to God, that one act has saved me from so much trouble. And I do mean trouble. But going to God and making that a purpose, because I like to have, in my life, I don't know how it is for anybody else really, but these little triggers in my head saying, hey, you need to do something about this. I like having those. Like, hey, if I brush my teeth, I need to pray. I don't know why those two correlated to me, but now they do, instantly. Those two are interlocked. But I'm trying to make it, if I get starting to feel myself get angry, annoyed, is just to go to God saying, what is happening, or just to talk to God. And I found over the past, I've been trying to do that all year, but the more I concentrate on that, the better it is. The better my day goes, the less frustration I feel, and even if something goes wrong, it's almost like it's happening in third person, not directly at me, but with me. It takes it on a whole new way. But going to God, I think, is probably the number one thing that I could ever say, just from my own personal experience. There's somebody brought up defer anger. Proverbs 19:11. The discretion of man deferreth his anger, and it is glory to him to pass over transgression. You're trying to get rid of that before it gets to the anger part. So it's not happening. And that I think is super hard because somebody does something that really, really, it goes beyond, it's kicking to that point of I'm frustrated and now it's about to be pointed at somebody. That is hard to defer. That is hard to get rid of. But by golly, God says it is good to do. And I know in my own life it's good to do. Try to work with a situation, not work at it where it's working at you. Get rid of the evil. Colossians 3:8 says, but now ye also must put off these things. Anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communications out of your mouth. The list goes on. But this is paired with another one. Get rid of the things that are causing you to be frustrated. The things that are gearing your mind towards it. Your mind is influenced by everything that happens around you. That's just how it be. Your friends, your relatives, your family, the things you eat, honestly, it impacts your mind. But a lot of it's of music, a lot of the entertainment, the media. Hey, if I read the news, I tend to get more upset. I think I know that correlation pretty well. But specifically the things that we're doing that are getting us upset, like the negative things, the sinful things. Anger. The more you let yourself get angry, the easier it is to become angry. It's like a heat stroke. You get it once, it's easier to happen next time. You get angry once at something, it's easier to happen next time. You have to take precautions. And I'm not saying this at anybody, I'm saying this at me. I have to take precautions. And I do not succeed all the time, and I need to succeed more. But that's just something I have to consciously do. What about seek that which is holy? So you got rid of the bad, let's go to the good. Philippians 4:8 says, finally, brethren, in whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, and then goes just, pure, lovely, of good report, and virtuous, think on these things. So I get rid of the bad, go to the good. I think that's a pretty good idea, though. The more I pray, the more I go to the Bible. I like reading the little devotion. I like hearing a sermon. I have somebody who's like the middle of Indiana that came, and I like listening to him. Whenever Pastor James gets and starts preaching, I put him on. So I wonder if he'll answer that. But in all seriousness, the more I spend in my day dwelling on that which is good instead of that which is bad, it does help. And I've noticed this in my own life. I've seen that recommended by other people. And the Bible, especially, it recommends it. Think on that which is good. What about meditate on God? Psalm 62:5. My soul, wait thou upon God, for my expectation is for him. dwell upon God, think on God, and what we need to do. Like I said, I think that goes hand in hand with going to God. You talking to him, you having a communication, an open line. Let me get through the rest of these, and then I'll ask here. So pray and thank God. Philippians 4:6, be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication and thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto him, praying to God. Count it joy. James 1:2, my brother, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience, but let patience have a perfect work, that you might be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. Patience is a solid part of building up your strength. And patience is built, I believe, through frustration a lot of the times. Because if you can learn to be patient, you can learn to do pretty much anything. And that is my solid belief. And I am very not patient. I need to work on that. Music calms the soul. What about David in Psalm, where this music literally calms? I know if I listen to music that is calming, I'm calm. If I listen to music that's harsher, I am harsher. You have music literally to pump you up for if you want to go to the gym, work out. Focus music. I use that when I need to actually focus. Music has an impact. There's a time and place for all things. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, to everything there's a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. There is a reason you're going through what you're going through. It's a good thing to remember when I go through things. There's a reason for it. Let perseverance finish her work. James 1:4, we'll continue with that. Oh, I just went over that. What about look forward to what God has planned? Exodus 14:14, the Lord shall fight for you, and you shall hold his peace. That God is on your side. Look forward to what he is doing. Going back to that first idea of God's already conquered. Jesus has already won. Look forward. I remember in college, one of the big advice they gave to us was, think of your life, let me make sure we're still going here. Think of your life as an adventure. When you get into those bad times, that you're training. And maybe that was because we were all kids, we're all very young. I say very young, I think I was 20. Yeah, I was very young. I forgot, I'm 29 now. I'm old. But when we were younger, it was the adventure. The thought of what is tomorrow going to bring, not in fear, but in anticipation. How can I conquer that? A few quick ones. Get up again, Proverbs 24:16. We might not understand the reason. That's a big one. Why is this happening? Well, maybe there's not. Maybe you won't ever know. We need to trust God, Proverbs 3:5-6. And in frustration, just a final few notes is recognize it, pray about it, talk to God about it, ask for that peace, understanding, and wisdom. Go to God once again. So all these things, these are, like I said, stolen from everybody. Just kept on piling it into the list, kept on trying to say, yeah, that's true. Looking into the context a little bit, making sure it's not just taken from left field. But all these things, all the stories, all the people, they went through frustration, and I earnestly believe that those times are when we start building ourselves. And for me, that's when I need to fight. That's when I need to learn, to grow, to stop my anger. What's the best way to stop your anger is to not be angry, to stop it before it happens. And I think to learn how to do that is during those frustrating, annoying times when your brother's poking you. That keeps coming up because it was a real life experience. But now I want to ask you guys, does anybody else have a Bible verse or a thing that they do when they're getting really annoyed, really frustrating, everything's piling on at once? One of the other things, I'll just lead on to, I don't know if this is in the Bible, I eat. I eat when I'm frustrated, and yeah, I eat a lot. I don't know if that's any correlation, but I do that, and then I spend money at the store. So, two of the things you're probably not supposed to do, but I buy myself a little treat. But does anybody else have a thing they do with frustration? Any advice, anything that they noticed from the Bible? then we can keep going with what I do. And it's only going to go downhill from eating. Yeah. And that's the conclusion I came to too on this. It's like our own situation. It's not pointed at somebody, and when it's not pointed at somebody, I I think it's pointed at us. That cycle builds. And I notice that too, especially when I do something and then I realize I did it wrong and it was super obvious why. So I'm not to the point where I'm angry, but holy cow, I'm an idiot. Please stop doing that, Jace. Perfect example. I have something in my hand, put it down, gone. Don't know where that sucker's at. Takes me 30 minutes to find it if I ever find it again. Yeah. Yeah. I do. I have mini snack. Actually, I ran out of snack now. That's the problem. Look at that. It's all gone. Car trouble started happening. Money started flying. My snacks also started going away. All right. Well, I think it's a good little activity to consider the low, not the high points, kind of that middle ground, because that's where we're at most of the time of when something's gonna hurt us. That's the uphill, you know. You're not reached to the top. It's not horrible. You're not at the down low, but you're kind of at that point where, yeah, what do I do? I want to stop myself because I feel bad, but how? And honestly, the Bible does address it, especially in the examples that they give, you know, and the lessons that we can learn. And I think knowing that we can learn something from it is one of the biggest helps, and going to God is the biggest. Let me grab a prayer sheet. I don't know if anybody wants these. They have printed ones. I didn't know they actually printed off the correct ones. Oh, that's going over there now. Goodbye. So for our prayer sheet, I don't know if we have anything new. Let me see. So Kurt and Mick continue health improvements. Gary Arthur's knee replacement, June 7th. That's yesterday. It went well, good. That my knees are jacked, so I will eventually have to have it, and I do not want it. Glad it's going well, though. The graduates that recently graduated, they all need to know where they're going to go if they don't. If it's straight to jobs, straight to community college, which I endorse. Community college would have been great. My brother got in with like a bunch of student debt, as everybody does. And then I got lucky and had none, because I went to PCC. DeMoss, New Richmond teacher, lost husband abruptly to brain aneurysm and 2 kids. I think that's still from last week, because I remember putting it on something. So I am going to essentially close us in prayer. Does anybody else have something they want to add? Yes. Let me add this to the very bottom. He did leave. Does the baby have a name? Was the baby have a name? Uh-oh. Chase. It's close to Jace. I've never seen so many Jaces, but at this school I'm at. Yes. Could you, Al, Alma Owens, and she's at the Jewish hospital, you said? Hospital. Cool. Sorry, my ears they don't work. I have somehow destroyed them too. All right. I'm still looking for a house. I'm hoping they let me out of my current place a little bit early so that I can not be there as long because I hate driving an hour and it's destroying my car. It's 100 miles a day at least. So with the gas prices, they at least pay for my gas partly. Gosh, I'm going to start losing money if the gas keeps going up. Going to work. Yes, they are at vacation. They're going down in September too, and Morgan actually goes to PCC, so that's exciting. Do you know if they took the camper?
No, I don't think they did.
Okay, so they're just enjoying life, not the camper life.
I think Jim and Linda would.
That would make sense now that you say that. They're going to a beach near Destin, I think. I lived in Pensacola for 7 years, and I went to the beach none of those years. I do not like. I was not jealous of Pastor James. The beach isn't air conditioned. Which neither. Hey, I have standard, and my standard is being temperature controlled. Yeah, that is a frustration. But that frustration that can be avoided completely by not going to the beach. I don't understand. The last time I went to the beach was a mission trip when they made me. I am not jealous, but I am happy that they are able to take some time off. So remember, I don't know if I actually said that out loud, Pastor James and his trip, vacation with that whole family. So hopefully that's a fun time for them. All right, anybody else? I don't want to just end it early. All right, I will pray for these, and then we will be dismissed. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this time that we had together, for teaching me about frustration and those midpoints that just get me going. And thank you, God, for pointing out those times and being that trigger that I can just snap back to you. Realize I'm getting way too worked up over nothing. You've already conquered. You've opened the door for us to come to you. And thank you. Thank you for allowing us to even talk to you, to almost complain and to praise you for it. Thank you, God, for being that strength, that wonder, that will, and that way, and help us to glorify you. We have a lot of people that are struggling, Lord, with the health and sickness. Please be with them. With Norm, as he's just got his overall health. Tim Raines, Sue Arthur with the eye condition, Bob Owens as he is in rehabilitation for the foot surgery, and just help him heal him up and help him be able to walk. I know he liked going to church. We miss him. Please be with Miss Smith, who has her brother is experiencing seizures, and that wife has onset dementia. And be with Mike Deal, somebody I used to know, and whose son has Pandus, son with Coop, and 2 with RSV. And just be with that situation. Help them fight it. Help them to see themselves as working with it, not against it, and to encourage them and give them healing, but ultimately to see you work in their lives. Please be with Shirley, as their neighbor is faced with a tough decision, considering the future of their mom and the living conditions that I have, so that I can find a place that's a little bit closer to work, not destroying my car, and just be nice about that. Please be with Shirley again, as they're having that family reunion, celebration of life for their cousin, and Danny Wright for their cancer treatment. So we go throughout this, the WIT with their continued health improvements, and please be with the camp fundraising, that they get everything they need to go, so no one has an excuse of not going, that they can all come closer to you because of that. I know it's a huge impact in lives. Thank you, God, for the surgery for Gary Arthur going well, the recent graduates, and thank you for letting them graduate and help them to know where you want them to go and to impact their lives now. Please be with Dee Moss, as their New Richmond teacher has lost their husband abruptly to a brain aneurysm, and be with the kids, that they see you somehow, that they know that you care and they can point to you and take comfort in you. Please be with Herb, as we believe he tore something and is hurting, and help him feel better real soon. Be with Angie, as the baby came early, just help that situation, give a good health to that kid, and just be with them overall to calm the mother and give peace. Please be with Elma Owens, is in the Jewish hospital, and just be with that health there. Forgive me for my inability to speak, and help me to glorify you and all of us to seek you. And just be with the shut-ins, that we can communicate with them, let them know that we love them, let them know that we miss them, and just be able to visit them every once in a while. Help us to glorify you, honor you, and praise you. In Jesus' precious name I pray, amen. A couple of other things to note, because he has these on the upcoming dates, is there's that Estate Planning and Fraud Prevention Seminar and Lunch is June 28th. Pastor James keeps saying it's supposed to be really cool, really interesting, and quite possibly a time where nobody else has done it. So I haven't even heard of that happening before, so it's probably something a lot of us have not heard. And then July 10th and 23rd is the baby shower. So excitement. A lot of kids coming through. I don't know if he's mentioned this. The kids ministry exploding, and we need more people. So if anybody wants to. But we would appreciate more people, because I think it's big enough now that we can have 2 classes, one for the little kids, one for the older kids. We are just getting that many kids, which is exciting. I like it. I work with those kids. I beat them up every 4th Sunday. So if you want your kid to be beaten up, 4th Sunday. All right, thank you, everybody. That wasn't a good sign. Okay, it was just flashing. Thought my computer screen broke for a second. I have to go turn off the stream real quick. Yeah, good.